Time check. 5 minutes? Got it.
Hey, Jory.
Hey!
How was your weekend?
Oh, it was great. I watched the Grammys. Hey, I saw your girl Taylor won some awards.
Yeah, she's having one of those dream seasons like the 1995 Ontario team that went to state. We had the best team at D3 that year. Did Taylor win Song of the Year?
She did, actually. It actually went to Miley Cyrus.
Is that the girl who lives the dream of a double life as a pop star, but nobody knows it?
Yeah, that was Hannah Montana. It was silly, though. But anyways, Joe, you're good to go. Let's have a good show.
Yeah, just a silly dream.
Whoa! Is that Jamma Montana? With bars like Fort Knox and the looks of a Hall of Fame coach?
I can win myself titles, cut down nets with my fans, draw a plays for hours, other coaches don't understand.
Joe! Hey, wake up, man, we're rolling.
Hi, welcome to an all-new episode of The Joe Show. I'm Jamma Montana, Joe Balogh. Episode 5 starts now. It's been 4 years since the Northmor boys basketball program enjoyed a conference championship, but under the tutelage of fourth-year head coach Blade Tackett, the Golden Knights secured a KMAC title last weekend with their 7th consecutive win. So I stopped by practice in North Bloomfield Township to catch up with Tackett in the midst of his successful campaign to find out where he draws his inspiration as an ascending young coach in the area. We're here with Blade Tackett of the Northmor Knights. Blade, I think it's always interesting for our audience to hear about a coach's journey. So I know you played at Crawford in high school. Very good player for the Eagles under David Sheldon. But tell us a little about your journey after high school, about what you did and kind of how you got to this point that you're at Northmor right now.
Yeah, first off, I'd say pretty good players. All the teams that he's had, I don't know if I'm really good anymore. Maybe when he first started coaching.
You were pretty good when we went against you. So,
that's actually where the passion started with Coach Sheldon. When I realized I think this coaching gig would be pretty fun and fits my personality pretty well. And then, as you know, I got close with Dane Kennedy over there as well, and the way that they would prepare, and I just loved the scouters that they used to make and the DVDs that he used to burn. It's a lot easier for me than I think it was for them. But upon graduation, then I went to Bluffton, much like Coach Sheldon did, played for a couple of years. Played for Coach Neal, who, you know Coach Neal as well.
I know him, but I've heard the story, like if you play for him, is one of the things you're going to learn to do is be organized.
Yeah, be organized and be tough. That definitely came away with both of those things. Even though I didn't finish the 4 years there, but I really used a lot of the things that I learned in those 2.5 years from him as well. And then upon graduating Bluffton, I got hired at Ridgedale, which, interestingly enough, I just told you we walked in, our freshmen are playing Ridgedale tonight, and one of my former players, who I love to death over there, Sam Leach, is coaching the team. One of those, you know how it is early on, there's a couple players that you latch on to, and he was one of those kids that I had him like my 3rd year there, and just loved the kid. I thought he was a great player and a great kid. So it was nice seeing him. I didn't know he was a coach. And then, so 3 years at Ridgedale. Then the varsity assistant job opened up here. And Coach Ruth and I were always pretty close. I don't even really remember how our relationship started. And that was the same year that Coach Armrose got hired here as a football coach. So simultaneously, the varsity assistant opens up here for basketball and for football. and I'm pretty passionate about both sports. So they had a math opening as well, so the stars aligned, and here I am.
And you still coach football?
Don't coach football anymore.
Okay.
So I coached football my first 2 years here. First year, football, basketball, and baseball. I was a JV coach under Coach Workman. Second year, just football and basketball, and then my third year, I just kind of switched over to basketball. I was lucky enough to get the job in my fourth year.
I think every coach, when you kind of get your program, you try to instill the word now I think is culture, but like a philosophy. So if you were to tell people, like, if they came and watched a Northmor basketball team play, what would that philosophy be as far as what you would want people to see out of your basketball team?
Yeah, I think our biggest thing is probably, maybe you can tell on the floor. I don't know, I guess you guys would be the judge of that. But I think our biggest philosophy is preparation. And I learned that really from every coach that I was under. It obviously started with Coach Sheldon and Kennedy and Capel. And then it was the same at Bluffton. We actually did handwritten scouting reports there, which was pretty neat. We'd have to come in, find our own time, handwrite down everything, and keep it in a binder. And then Coach Otterbacher was the same way at Ridgedale. He does very good in-depth scouting reports. I think he does it at Calvert still to this day. And so that was one of the big staples, is we want our kids to be prepared. And there's a fine line with that, because you also, we need to be able to execute our stuff.
Yep.
But it's important for us to be prepared. So that would be number one, is to be prepared about, with our opponent, so we know what we're getting into. And then number two, I think our biggest thing is just, my biggest thing is I like our guys to have a personality.
Yep.
And whatever that entails, I always tell our guys, it's a very broad term, but I want you to have a personality. I want you to smile, I want you to talk, I want you to give effort. People can look at kids on the floor and know, it's that old, I don't know what Coach said it, maybe you do, but it's that old adage that, you have a type of body language, and then you have a type of speaking language. And I want them to be on the same page. We can get into the X's and O's. We like to execute and run sets. We like to play, most of the time, good man defense with a really good zone to jump into to keep people off guard. So, those are our offensive philosophies. That's kind of the nitty-gritty. But the big stuff is, like, I want our kids to be prepared, and I want to have a personality on the floor. And even if that's not a voice, you should still, if you're an introverted kid, be able to show with your body language that you still have the energy, the communication, and the stuff to match, the guys around. We can all fit together like that. So it's a weird philosophy to have, but that's what I want out of
I don't
guys.
think it's a weird philosophy at all. I think it is important. One of the things that I think that's, we talked a little bit about before practice, going to watch people scout in person, and sometimes, you look at the demeanor of a player, and to be honest with you, there's some kids you go, if we bump him hard, we're going to get into his head a little bit, and that's part of it. Over my many years of coaching, I had a lot of influences. You mentioned playing. I played for a guy, Ron Stevens. He was a great influence, and then, I went to Ohio Northern and Gail Doherty and Joe Campoli. But then, as I got out of coaching, got out of college, you kind of started following guys like, Bob Knight was big when I played, and there's a guy named Don Meyer that he had a collection of like 28 videotapes. I think I got them all and watched them. Are there any coaches like that you kind of looked at in your career, besides maybe a guy, Neil, like that have influenced you as far as coaching? Yeah, sure. When I was in college, I was obsessed with John Beilein and the Wolverines. I'll never forget that Final Four run they made. I think it was my junior year, maybe 2000. I guess it would have been 2012. Mitch McGarry, for whatever reason, not a great regular season player, but just was amazing in that postseason. And Trey Burke hit that shot against Kansas. And I watched it right in my dorm room, and I just always gravitated to him. And I was a Michigan fan of swords, but was more of a Michigan football fan in passion. Sorry to all the people I just offended out there. We won't hold that against you. Yeah, we might have to cut that out of the interview. Yeah, I hope you actually maybe you should cut that out. But no, it was actually the basketball side of it that I was more passionate about because of the things that he did, and I love how he was able to run with like a high post Princeton style offense. Always had great sets, and just from looking at like their, listening to their players and then hearing him talk,
I feel like that was a lot of the things I aligned with too. Is I always thought his players were prepared, and I always thought they executed sets on defense, did a couple different things defensively, but he always talked about the personality thing, and that's kind of where I got that from.
I mean, you've been coaching for a while. Favorite part of coaching?
I think I hope my players would know this answer, and maybe the community too. But it's just like when I saw Sam out there and we picked up a conversation. Like, I haven't seen him. Well, I guess I saw him at baseball last year. He was coaching baseball, but it's the relationships with the kids, and I think it's always going to be that. I pride myself on that and building good, strong relationships with them, so that when they come back, I can give them a high five, and we can have a conversation about how life's going and what he's been up to, and he's become a coach, and I'm super proud about that. And and this is I've been close with a lot of seniors, like the seniors that we've had, Max last year, and Grayson, Logan Mariotti, and a couple kids before, Andrew Armour before that. But this group of kids we had as freshmen. They were freshmen my first year as head coach, and now they're seniors, and I just feel a connection I've never felt with these guys that I take a lot of pride in, and I don't want to speed up their lives, but I'm excited to see what they do as young men, because I think they're going to be pretty successful.
Flip the coin. Is there a least favorite part of coaching?
Yeah, there's a least favorite part. It's a grind. There's just a lot of hours that people don't see, and I would tell you that as an assistant, like, you kind of see those things, but you never really know until you're a head coach what it's actually like. The emails that you get that people don't see, or the phone calls you get that people don't see, all the stuff you're working with in the background to just try to make your program as a whole successful, and not just the basketball part that most people see. And youth basketball yesterday, where we're here from, there's games at 1, 2, and 3, but I'm walking in at 9:30, and I got a 2 and a 4-year-old at home with my wife. They get to enjoy a Sunday off, but the youth program is important. We get here and we set up and we run all these games, and then we got to clean up. And next thing you know, it's a Sunday, and I'm here from 9 to 5. And we got freshman game tonight. We're going to scout tonight, and so it's all just a grind, and it's all like, it's everything that I love and everything that I hoped it to be. But as well as anyone that sometimes that stuff just wears on you, all that extra stuff.
The only thing I can tell you is that it makes winter go fast.
Yeah, that is true. I can't believe it's almost February.
And sometimes, as I retired for 3 years, if I wasn't doing something like this, I don't know, I might go stir crazy a little bit.
I believe that.
But the last couple questions I have, you're in the second half of the season now. Maybe talk a little bit about how you change, if you change, or how you change practices. Here in the second half of the year as you approach this stretch run of the season. Yeah,
it's vastly different than beginning of the season for us, and it's been like kind of a fluid. It's been fluid throughout the year, because football made a very deep run, so that really impacted the beginning of our practice, where we have over half of almost half of our players were football players on that team. And so beginning of the year, when we only have a select group of guys, you're really focused on fundamentals and shooting and building, and you're still trying to put in a couple of the things that you're going to run during the season, right? We scrimmaged Bucyrus early on with 6 guys, so we still try to get them some playing time, the guys that we had. Then you get the full team back, and we try to go a little bit longer, and I always know that transition is hard from football. I did the same thing, where it's like you have a certain routine. Well, now you got to come to basketball. We got to run 2.5 to 3 hour practice. We got to get you in shape. We got to start banging on you again. We got to still lift, all this stuff. So long practices, still working on the skill sets, but putting in the stuff that we did. And I will tell you, with this senior group, while those practices were long a couple years ago, they're not even that long anymore, because they know everything that we do, and they know how we want to run practices. And there's only very few times with this group that I've walked out and said, man, we just did not have a good practice today. And so I've been blessed on that front. That comes with a good senior and junior class. But as we get to tournament time here, we really shorten practices. We ran at 3:30 today. We did scouting report and film. We're on the floor at 4. We do some half-court fundamentals, some full-court shooting, some half-court shooting. We run a couple situations, and there's an hour and 15 minutes. And I think while it went fast, I thought it was a good hour and 15 minutes. I thought it was a good day of practice, and I think we're ready for tomorrow. And, we'll take a day off, too, if we ever get a chance. Now, we have 2 games this week. We're not going to be able to do that, but, if we get into February and we're only playing 1 game a week, I think it's good for our guys to just kind of get away and get refreshed and get some rest and just get away from the gym for it. I think that's valuable too, so we'll do that.
Final question, you kind of already alluded to it, but this team, what do you really like about this basketball team? You already kind of mentioned that, but
that goes,
elaborate.
Yeah, it goes back to just what we kind of hang our hat on, and this group is just not only do they love basketball, but I think they enjoy being here. And maybe I just can't read that really well, but all of the kids have great personalities on the floor and off the floor. I think they enjoy each other's company. That's probably my favorite, is we've had groups that are close, but I think you could look back probably and know this group is just something different. They're together all the time. Like, they're always talking about, it's like, I'm like, guys, it's a school night. You're going to go hang out with each other tonight? And they're always together off of the floor. And I think that translates onto the floor.
Oh, it definitely
so
does.
I could go to over all the basketball stuff. They're great basketball players. But, I think the thing I like the most is the kind of people that they're off the floor.
Well, I mean, having the opportunity to watch you practice, you could see that in practice today. And then having the opportunity, after a couple of games that we've covered, to interview a couple of your kids, you can really just tell just how respectful they are. And I think that's a reflection of, it's a reflection, number one, of their upbringing, but it's also a reflection of the basketball program. So you got it going, and we at the OH Report are going to wish you the best of luck as you go down the stretch run of the season.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So thanks
Coach.
a lot.
Thanks for coming.
Tackett's Golden Knights now have their sights set on earning the #1 seed in the Division IV Central District, hoping to win the program's first ever district crown this season. Last week I gave you 10 nominees to consider for Coach B's Ballers, and after a fan vote, here's your winner from January the 24th through the 30th. Congratulations to Upper Sandusky's Cayman Isles, who scored 17 points, nabbed 3 rebounds, and even battled through a black eye in a 57-52 win at rival Winford in Northern 10 play. You are the fan vote winner of Coach B's Ballers. Now it's time to meet this week's nominees. Here comes the best individual performances captured by our cameras on this edition of Coach B's Ballers. Our first nominee is Grace Walton of the Upper Sandusky Rams. This junior guard was straight cooking the defense this past week as she poured in 22 points, grabbed 3 rebounds, added 2 assists, along with 2 steals. Grace leads the N10 in scoring, assists, steals, and 3-point shooting percentage. The Rams are currently 7-3 in the N10, 12-6 overall as they gear up for the Division III District Tournament, where they will play the winner of Willard-Edison matchup. Our second nominee is Corey Vermilia of the Loudonville Redbirds. This Ohio Player of the Year candidate continues to dominate as she scored 19 points, going 7 of 7 from the free throw line, along with 3 steals. The Redbirds are currently 16-1 and are the #1 seed in the 38-team Northeast Division IV District. Loudonville will host Youngstown Valley Christian on Wednesday, February 21st in their opening game of the OHSAA tournament. Our third nominee is Isaiah Ramsey of the Shelby Whippets. This all-around senior athlete scored 25 points, going a perfect 8 of 8 from the free throw line, and threw down an impressive dunk in the Whippets' 86-77 win over River Valley last Thursday. Isaiah has really stepped up his game over the past 2 weeks and helped the Whippets clinch another MOAC crown this season. Our fourth nominee is Davion Mack of the Mansfield Christian Flames. This young freshman has put together a solid season and exploded for 24 points in the Flames' 71-35 domination of rival St. Peter's. The Flames have won 9 in a row and are currently ranked #4 out of 14 teams in the RPI for the Division IV Northwest District 5. The Flames travel to Lucas this Friday for a key matchup with the Cubs, as Lucas currently sits just in front of them at 3rd in the RPI rankings. Our fifth nominee is Addison Kemery of the Bucyrus Redmond. This senior turned on the beast mode as she led the Redmen to a 58-40 win over Mount Gilead last Saturday. She scored 22 points, which included dialing in 3 threes from behind the arc. The Lady Redmen currently stand at 7-11 and are the number 7 seed in their district tournament. They will match up with the Winford Royals on Thursday, February 22nd in the opening game of the OHSAA tournament. Our 6th nominee is Hunter Falk of the Northmor Golden Knights. Hunter was truly golden in the Knights' dominating 80-51 win over the Danville Blue Devils as he stroked 3 threes on his way to a 28-point performance. With this win, Northmor grabs a share of the KMAC crown as they go to 10-1 in the conference and 14-4 overall. The Knights will likely be the number 1 seed in the 19-team Division IV Central District. Our 7th nominee is Annika Labaki of the Clear Fork Colts. This senior forward was hot early and shined brightly on her senior night in the Colts win over Highland as she buried 4 threes in the first half for her game-high total of 12 points. The Colts currently stand at 15-5 for the season. They are the number 3 seed in their Division III tournament draw and will match up with the number 10 seed Western Reserve at home on Thursday, February 22nd. Our 8th nominee is Jackson Martin of the Bellevue Redmen. This senior planted a Redmen flag on the mountaintop at Upper Sandusky as he scored 10 points in Bellevue's 34-30 win at Upper Sandusky on Tuesday night. Jackson iced the game with 2 clutch free throws. The Redmen are 15-3 on the season, are on a 6-game win streak, and are currently number 3 in the OHSAA RPI rankings for the 11-team Northwest District 3, sitting just behind Shelby and Lexington. And our 9th nominee is Annika Labaki of Clear Fork. That's right, she's nominated for a 2nd time this week as she tied her own 3-point shooting record by knocking down 7 threes in the Lady Colts' 54-38 win over Cardington on Tuesday night. Labaki led her team with 23 points in this contest. The Colts wrap up their regular season with River Valley at home tomorrow night and then travel to West Home next Thursday. We'll post these nominees for a fan vote tomorrow to determine which of my ballers had the best performance of the week. Coming up after the break, veteran high school basketball official Charlie Scott joins me in studio. Stay tuned. We'd like to welcome Charlie Scott, a longtime basketball official, to the Joe Show tonight. Charlie's been officiating for over 40 years, and throughout this show that we've done, we've interviewed coaches, Charlie, and kind of had coaches kind of tell about their background and their coaching journey. So thought it'd be interesting to bring an official on. So my first question for you is, how'd you get started in officiating, and kind of what's that journey been like?
Well, it's been a great journey for one thing. I enjoy being around the kids. It's still fun. A friend of mine, I just got married in February, and that fall he said, hey, let's take the officiating class. So we took the officiating class, and Russ Pitts was our...
Russ.
Yeah, Russ. They had so many people in the officiating class, there was, I think, 30 in each class. And Jerry Zernuski, who's the local official, and now, as of 2 years ago, Dale Pennington from he's up around Tiffin. He and I were the only 2 left, but we ended up, Sertel taught one class and Russ taught the other, and we ended up in Russ's class. And he, I don't know, I must have did something right, because he took me as his JV official. Back then you took your JV officials, and him and Bobby Reel took myself and a guy by the name of Ralph Chabert at that time. We went with them everywhere and did all their JV games, and it led
which is a lot different than it is today.
Oh yes.
I mean,
yes.
that's one of the things you brought it up, and was probably going to bring that up later, but I think talk about it now. But I don't think people realize, like when I started coaching, that the varsity officials and JV officials came at the same time,
Yep.
and then JV officials stayed and watched the varsity
Exactly.
officials. And now
That's
today,
huge, yes.
JV officials leave as soon as the game's
yeah,
over.
Yeah, they're going, and you know, we learned a lot just watching them. And but I mean, you spent it was a whole night thing but also the varsity officials had to stay for the JV.
Yep.
You know, so they could give you some pointers. And my partner and I try to show up for all the JV game, and you don't flood a JV official with a bunch of
Right.
stuff. You give him one or two things, and I mean, he can let it go in one ear and out the other, or he can take it whatever he wants, you know, and makes it kind of nice sometimes, you know. So then, very seldom, I think you could count on one hand how many times a year they stick around.
So when you got into officiating, you started officiating like at the JV level.
Correct.
So like how long did you stay like a JV official till you started advancing to a varsity official?
Yeah, it was, you have to do JV ball 7th and 8th, 9th grade for 2 years. The third year, you can get into varsity officiating, you know, as long as you passed your test to be a 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was fortunate just because they got a lot of games, and I got handed some games that I probably didn't deserve to have at the varsity level because they couldn't do all the games people asked them for. So started the third year and was able to do some games, and then just kept going from there.
So as you know, and people again may not understand that now since you have 3-man crews, but back then it was just 2.
Correct.
So did you, at that time, did you kind of keep a partner, or did you work with a variety of people?
Yeah, when we were going with Russ and Bobby, we had a usual partner. Once in a while you'd have somebody different, but very seldom, because they would call, and we had a lady that did our books, and they just called her and she wrote it in our calendar. And I mean, it was pretty nice. I think back then we paid her $100, and we didn't do anything but wait on our book. She handed us our book before the season started. It was pretty nice. And so, you know, we just looked, and they would call her, and that's how I got some games, because, you know, she'd say, well, you know, Russ and Bobby can't do it. I have a young official. Would you be interested in him? So.
My next question, you know, we're getting to the end of the regular season. We're getting into the tournament. And I think, you know, you officiated for 40 years. And last year you got a chance to do, I think, a state tournament game at the girls' state tournament, correct?
Correct.
So I guess maybe one of the interesting things for people that are watching would be kind of how does that process work about, you know, you eventually, I mean, it took you 40 years to get there, about that process of getting sectional games, district games, regional games, and finally state tournament games.
Early in our career, it was just the coaches.
Right.
We got votes, and it just went on who the coaches. And then eventually it was, you got a vote from the athletic director.
Yep.
You got the coach. I think the principal was involved at one time. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure if they are either, but then I think the league commissioners were.
Yeah, and then you had, you get votes from the secretary, your association, the secretary of the association, the interpreters, and then your association, and then I think they're called Friends of the OHSAA. They have so many votes.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, they can vote. I think it's like maybe people that go out and observe. I'm not sure. Maybe assigners. I'm not sure exactly who Friends of that are, but I think it's people that are involved that have a lot to do, that puts a lot of time into the officiating end of it.
So like my understanding now is it's not like officials are ranked 1 through whatever. They're just like you have a top group of officials that are put into a pool, and then those kind of pools carry like district to regional, and then eventually to state.
Correct, exactly. Yeah, we you get ranked and you get so many points, and usually I think 60 is the top rating, and I've never heard of anybody getting a 60, but maybe they have, you know. And so usually, you know, if you're in the 50s, you're probably going to get a state game. If you're in the 40s, you're going to get a regional game. If you're in the 30s, you'll get a district game. And 20s, you get a sectional game.
So when you sometimes get to the tournament, are you now like, are you put with like two other guys that you have no clue who they are?
Yeah, you're potluck on that, and you get kind of get settled in with your usual partners, and it's kind of nice I think it's kind of nice at the tournament level. Now all of a sudden you got to pick your game up a little bit, because now you're officiating with good people, and you're thinking, well, I don't want not get showed up, but I don't want them to look a lot better than me. So yeah, I think it helps.
So during the season, do you have a crew that you pretty much work with?
Correct. Yes.
You like that better than if you were just assigned kind of randomly?
I kind of like it for the most part, but once in a while it's nice just to officiate with somebody else. Excuse me. Yeah, somebody else that you don't know, because you have a good pregame and you get into some stuff, and
I know that was a discussion probably 10 years ago that we had. Like, did we want crews or the so-called best officials? And I think a lot of coaches, at least I was the one that was favored. I preferred a crew because of what you just said, the comfort zone that they had like during the regular season. That like, because sometimes I found that if you had three separate guys, you might have one guy that was going to try to show everybody else up. And I've had guys that come to me and go, I could tell you remember Merle Dutt, don't you?
Yeah.
So we had Merle Dutt, Rick Bayless, and I can't think of who the third guy was, but their normal third guy wasn't there. And so we were playing, I believe, Riverdale, and I had a kid named Jake Mahoski came from behind and blocked it, kind of pinned it on the glass, and the official called a goaltend. So I was going, I was calm. No. Yeah. I was going kind of berserk a little bit, and Rick Bayless, next was a free throw, and Rick stayed in front of me, and I'm going, Rick, there's no way that's a goaltend. And Rick's just kind of like, blah. And so then another foul happens. Well, Merle's in front of me, and I'm still going. Merle was just tall. And I still remember Merle had that whistle in his mouth. He takes the whistle out of his mouth, and he turned and he goes, "It was tonight, Joe." And I was like, well, just shut up and move on. So you kind of referred a little bit also to, what you try to do. But like right now, you've been officiating pretty much since November. So like when you go to a game, like maybe give people like a typical game night scenario of when you get there and kind of what you go through.
Right. You usually check before you go. You check on official or teams' records and see, common opponents, if they've already played each other, what kind of game we're possibly going to have. And once you get there, you go to the locker room. We watch the first half of the JV game, and shortly into the third quarter we go start getting dressed. Well, while you're getting dressed, you have what we call pregame. We go, I have a sheet I use that you go over all the things that you're going to do during the game and try to get everybody on the same page, because sometimes at the high school level you got somebody calling every little touch, and you have other officials that are letting them play a little bit. So you try to get on the same page, so you're going to match calls and things like that.
The other part though is like right now, I mean, how many games do you typically do a week?
I do. It used to be, you only work Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Now they're so short on officials. They've moved things. You could have a game Monday or Wednesday also, and I would say throughout the year probably average 5 a week. Sometimes you double dip on Saturdays because you have an afternoon game, but then you have time to recoup and have the evening game. So, yeah, I would say 5 at least.
One of the other thing is, I guess that you talked a little bit about. You talked about players or teams and also coaches. So maybe talk a little bit about that coach official relationship, how you kind of deal with that.
Yeah. And I mean, we talk because, coaches, and you say, in there you're going to say, hey, this coach can be a handful. This coach isn't going to say a word. I have a special relationship with this coach, so if you get in trouble, I'll come over and I'll try. I may not be able to please him, but maybe he'll listen to me a little better. Or if you have a special relationship with one of the two, then you go ahead and handle him. If he gets upset. So we get into that a little bit, but for the most part, I've always went with the idea that I'm there for 2 hours. The coach is there all week, so he's going to take a lot more abuse than I'm going to take in that 2 hours. So unless I mean, at the end of my pregame, I always say, hey, you got to, you answer questions, you ignore statements, and you penalize insanity. So unless that coach is insane, then and I tell some of the younger officials, if you go back to the locker room and you think, man, I should have stuck that kid or I should have stuck that coach, you should have probably.
Yeah.
You're doubting yourself, But I mean, it just doesn't work that way. I know I didn't. I think I didn't give a technical for I don't even know how many years, 4 or 5 years anyway. And
I mean, I've always appreciated officials, and I mean, there's been times that I know I should get a technical foul, but I've also appreciated when officials have just said, that's it, that when they've come and go, and then if you step over the line again, then you deserve it. I go to some games that my son coaches at JV at Kilbourne, and so I've watched some of their games, and one night. An official, I think they gave two player technicals, basically for kind of like taunting a kid, and I saw this young official. I thought he did a really good job with the first one. Like he teed him up, and then it was like in the next dead ball, he went to the kid and kind of just like talked to the kid like, hey, like he wasn't going to hold it over him. And then the other one that happened in the game, the coach was kind of getting on the official, and finally the official kind of turned and he goes, hey. He said, I'll talk to you, call a timeout. He said, but I'm not going to stand here and listen to you yell at me. And I thought, that was pretty good.
Yes.
So you've been a basketball official for 40 years, so basketball has changed a lot. So what maybe have you seen the positive changes in basketball over those 40 years?
I would say, to me, the biggest change is girls basketball. Used to be they stood on their tippy toes and rebounded, and you had. Back then you had a jump ball every time there was a jump ball instead of the alternating possession. And it seemed like you had to ice your shoulder afterwards for pitching. But now they're athletic, We had a girl down at the state last year, and I thought she could have played at the boys' state level. She was that good. I mean, you're just seeing girls that are athletic as all get out, and they're fun to watch. And you still have small schools that don't have the athletes, but everybody's got an athlete or two,
I mean, I think the skill level of girls basketball is going up, and I think, with kind of what's happened with college with, Caitlin Clark.
Right.
That continues to elevate that kind of play.
I
mean, the only concern I think with girls basketball right now we have kind of in the state of Ohio is just the numbers aren't there a lot. I mean, that's what's kind of disappointing is that. I mean, I think there's, like you said, the skill level is going up, but it seems like, have a lot of teams that don't have JV teams anymore.
Yes.
And that's hurt it. Flip the coin. You've been in it 40 years. What's the negative things that you've seen?
I think kids watch TV, and they see what the pros are doing, and they think that's at our level, and it's not. So I think kids aren't as respectful as they used to be. I don't know why, but you see a lot of kids that there's more technicals given to kids now, I think, than there ever has been, because they think they're allowed to act a certain way because they watch TNT and the NBA's on there, or ESPN, and they see how those guys act and nobody does anything. But I mean, I think some of that disrespect, which leads to the fans are awful now. It used to be, you can tell when someone's being vicious first when they're just yelling at you, and I think the viciousness, is awful now with some fans.
Yeah, and I think the OHSA is trying to do some programs about fan behavior and stuff, but that's a hard one to deal with. I mean, I think we talked maybe a little bit before about, you said you hardly ever eject fans, and now that's become more of a commonplace that has happened in the game, which is which is sad. I mean, the thing that I think you said, it seems too that when the kids make a three now, they gotta do something. They gotta do they all have to do something.
Right.
I'm a little bit old school that I don't know if I could deal with that either. It was funny. Was talking to a former coach, and we were talking about one of his former players is a college coach now, and so he said, he'll see him like in the locker room, they're dancing and stuff, and he goes, Joe, he goes, man, I could never do that. So you not only officiate at the high school level, but you've also officiated at the college level. So you've done D3, and I believe you said D2, correct?
Correct.
So the shot clock is in college basketball, and I know one of the issues that we have in high school basketball is there's people that want the shot clock, and then I have people telling me, Joe, don't ever, being involved with the coach association, you guys better never put up that we want a shot clock. So being an official, how would you feel about the shot clock coming into high school?
I like it at the college level. It's fine, but I'm not sure the high school level, not so much because of play, which we don't care. We're worried about the shot clock operator, and it is harder to operate a shot clock than it is the game clock. And I don't think schools realize that it's got to be somebody that is dead on. And I'm not sure, unless officials work at it pretty hard, that when it should be reset, when it should not be reset, when you go to a partial reset. It's going to be tough if they go to it to find people at every school that have the knowledge.
Because I've said this, it's not like running the regular clock or running the scoreboard.
No.
It's completely different, and adds another element of, then there's another element of could be discrepancy of how the game. I've talked to some coaches, and I've had like coaches like Jim Ruckey, who's at Findlay. I heard him on a podcast. They asked him about it. He goes, well, we played, I think he said they played Toledo St. John's last year, and the score's like 40-38. And he goes, and I watched that game, and he goes, I timed every one of our possessions, and I timed every one of St. John's. He said our possession was like 17.1 seconds on an average. Oh. St. John's was like 20.2. So he said, shot clock's really not going to, affect that. And then I got a nephew that coaches at Pettysville, small school, but he's got a player that's playing at Ohio Northern. And he said his player's a freshman. He came back and he said, Coach, he goes, I love the shot clock. And I said, really, Brian? He goes, yeah. He goes, but he didn't love it. He goes, he loved it because he said at the defensive end of the floor, he said you knew you had to play whatever it is for 30 seconds.
Right.
And that was it. You didn't have to, reset and play, for a minute. So that was interesting.
Well, Coach Quackenbush at Newark, you know him well. And when Trevor was coaching at Newark, I was down watching, and he goes, Scotty, come here. So I went over and he told me, he says, you're not going to believe what happened Friday night. He said, one of the officials, somebody was wearing him out, and him being the athletic director and the coach, he had somebody that took care of it. And he said, I see him come across the floor at me, and he said, there was a little over a minute left in the game, and they came over, and he said, I know you're pitching someone, just get rid of him. They said, yeah, the guy on the clock. And he said, I had to find someone to do the clock. You can find someone to do the book. But he said, I had to find someone in the crowd to do that clock that knew what they were doing. And
well, kind of the last thing, I was recently, since I'm retired, I got more time. But I came across the thing, the segment was entitled Tell Me a Story. And it was, they had Nick Saban on. He was telling a story about what he called his first coaching experience. And he said he was a 15-year-old quarterback in high school, and they were playing like their rival. He said they were like 8-1, and they had to win this game to get into the state playoffs. So he said they were down like 18-0, came back, got it 18-12. He goes, we're making a drive, and he said that they call timeout. So he said at 15-year-olds, he was a quarterback. He goes, I was calling all the plays. So he said, I go to the sideline, I go to the coach, like, what are we going to call? And he goes, because I didn't really want to make the call, because he said, if it doesn't work, he said, that's going to go on me. And he said, the coach looked at him and goes, well, you got the fastest tailback in the state. You got a 3-time All-State wideout. He goes, I don't give a damn what you call. He said, but the ball probably needs to go to one of those two guys. So he said, I faked the handoff through a slant route. He said, we scored a touchdown and win the game. He said, so he goes, the lesson I learned was, he goes, when it gets to crucial times, he says, don't worry about the play, but you better get it to the players. We talked a little bit beforehand. I'm sure as an official, you have some stories that you could tell, and maybe let's end with a few good stories that you have.
Like I told you before, the one that always sticks out just because it was my boys, they were probably 5 and 7. We had Winford at Ontario, and there was condensation because it was late. You know, it was probably February sometime. And in fact, it was probably last game of the year. I don't know.
Yeah.
You might remember,
Oh, yeah.
Joe. It usually
Well,
was.
I'll give you the insight on this. So when we got in the NCC, you know, you had the league schedule. So typically in most leagues, like every 2 years, that league schedule rotates. But for some reason, Rob never rotated it because it was like we kind of knew that Winford, Ontario was going to be the best game of the year. So, you know, the first round ended like the second week of January. Then the last game was always like almost the last week of the season.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, the floor was slippery, so we stopped, and I remember asking you, you know, do we have some kids? And he goes, boy, I don't really have anything. So we had my boys come out. They were probably 5 and 7, one at each end with a towel, and they would run out and wipe up the floor. And like I said, I didn't know much about style, so Trevor had on like blue sweatpants with a green and red top, and he reminds me to this day that, hey, I can't believe you embarrassed me right there, because it was a TV game and he was on TV running out there in those ugly sweats and stuff. So
well, Charlie, we appreciate you coming on, and you know, hopefully our viewers enjoyed it. As you know, as you've mentioned, I mean, if there's young guys out there that have an interest in staying with the sport, and maybe your job prevents you from like being a coach, officiating is a great way to stay involved and to be a part of continue to develop the game of basketball in the state of Ohio.
Exactly.
So
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot.
I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Charlie.
Welcome back to the Joe Show. I am OH Report founder Brian Skowronski, back with you for the top cuts of the week. And I appreciate everybody out there that chimed in with the comments over the last couple of segments that we dropped online. But this is my countdown, my list, no fan vote necessary. But I did actually total them up, and I saw that we're on the same wavelength out there. So my number one play from last week was actually what you voted as number one. So maybe we have more in common than we actually thought. All right. Let's get to this week's countdown, all of the best plays that we captured with our cameras from January the 31st through yesterday, February 6th. Run them. Here come your top 10 cuts of the week, presented exclusively by Buckeye Horizon. We're beating full court high pressure to tip off the countdown. Shelby's point forward, Alex Bruscotter, is getting harassed down the floor, but he's going to make it to the other end when he draws a triple team and he kicks it out to the corner where Braden DeVito hits a monster triple to help squash River Valley's 9-game win streak. Clutch genes on display all the way around, with Braden capitalizing on Bruscotter's strong handles. Let's head to the mountaintop, where Holden Darris looks like he's playing king of the mountain down the stretch in an upset win over Seneca East. How about scoring out of a triple team in the closing seconds and showing some emotion in front of the Upper Sandusky student section? Darris looking like his high school mascot as he rams his way into the lane for a massive bucket down the stretch. We're down on the reservation for play number 8. You'll see a missed reverse layup by Mount Gilead, going to be boarded by Bucyrus's Addison Kemery, who emerges as the leader of the pack. She's going to break away from 4 different defenders and dribbles by a 5th on her way to the rack. I mean, all 5 Indians have a shot at stopping Kemery's momentum, but she's able to shift it into the 3rd gear, mash on the gas, and gets all the way to the cup for a Lady Red bucket. More from KMAC country. Northmor looking to avenge an early season loss at the Castle, and Jax Wenger about to bury a key 4th quarter trifecta off a huge tip out from Grant Bentley. The catch and shoot is very impressive, but how about the setup from Bentley, who soars to the 2nd story to smack it out wide as the Golden Knights knock off Cardington at home. We're going around the back alley at play number 6. At least that's the strategy for Elgin's Nash Lust, who beats the defender baseline and sinks the sick floater over a weak side defense. Check out the setup in slow motion, followed by a nasty around the back dribble, and Nash finishes off the top cut with a rainbow bucket. Here we go to the top 5. It's Darius from earlier in the countdown. He's got the dish out to the wing, but it's coming back for a sleek setup inside, and Caden Isles polishes off the possession with a wide open layup. We'll slow it down for you folks a bit so you can see the graceful spin by Josh Hallman, who helps move the defense, and everyone forgets that Isles is all alone at point-blank range. Let's initiate the fast break at play number 4, but first, Amar Davis about to pilfer the rock. He will set things up, and down at the other end comes the lob to a high riser, Davion Mack, for the smooth alley-oop. We'll run it back for you again to showcase Davis with a theft. He'll trigger it down the sideline, and the streaking freshman with bounce like a dryer sheet eventually finishes things off with the score off the lob. Just over 2 seconds on the clock to start top cut number 3, and Abigail Hardwick gonna beat the third quarter horn from half court for Cardington's first 3 of the game. A second look shows Abby displaying perfect form from midcourt, and you already know the result. Hardwick cashing out a 3-pack to end the quarter. Big game Tuesday night between Big Walnut and Westerville North, who would get a nasty dunk here from Vari Adams on the setup from Ty Perkins to help slam the door on the Eagles. Adams sees it coming all the way and glides to the rim for a big-time alley-oop in crunch time. But your top cut of the week takes us back to where the countdown began. River Valley on the road at Shelby, MOAC title up for grabs in the final minutes, and off this missed Vikings 3-pointer, Shelby gonna make them pay at the other end with Isaiah Ramsey throwing down with some authority, stealing a 5th consecutive league title for the Whippets, who did it with some high-flying style to land at number 1 on this week's countdown. Congratulations to Ramsey and the boys out there in Shelby collecting more hardware for MOAC titles for the seniors out there. And again, no fan vote necessary here for the top cuts of the week. This is my list, my countdown, but I think it's pretty clear number 1 should be there. Let the debate go down in the comment section though now. All right, and speaking of debates, we've got Travis Big League Berardi here in the house. He's going to break down his top 5 small schools for both boys and girls basketball. We'll toss it over to Travis and Joe right now for your Country Road rankings.
This is Big League's Country Roads Rankings. Yoo-hoo! Welcome back to the Joe Show. I am Big League Berardi, back with my Country Roads Rankings, the top 5 small school girls and boys basketball squads in North Central Ohio. And before we start, Joe, a little PSA to anybody that wants to do the rankings: never put more than 2 teams in the same conference in, because they're going to bite you. The Northern 10's just been knocking each other out over the last 2 weeks, and it kind of just threw out my rankings, and some coaches from some other schools. Blade Tackett, I'm shouting you out. Just calling me out for that. Why aren't we in there? Northern 10 teams are blown. Well, we'll see here coming up. But Joe, as always, let's get with the ladies first. Our top 5 girls Country Roads rankings. At number 5, a new entry in this week. It is the Centerburg Lady Trojans. They're well on their way to a KMAC championship outright. They're 14-3. Their 3 losses are to Winford by 6 points, Danville by 2, and Mount Gilead by 7. So for a conference champ that only has 3 overall losses, and those 3 losses less than 7 points, they're a pretty good team.
Yep. Anytime, I mean, at this point of the season, if you're in that race and if you've clinched a conference championship, you should probably be one of the top teams in the area.
At number 4, the Cary Blue Devils. The Lady Devils, 16-3. They went 3-1 since my last update. They're the only Northern 10 team that's remaining in there, because Winford and Crawford both went 2-3 since my last update, so they dropped out for the other squad. But Cary, 16-3. They're 3-1 since their last update. The losses to Crawford, Upper by 2 points. So pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that fits well. As you mentioned, that Northern 10, in both boys and girls, has kind of just become knockouts. It's been interesting. It's going to be interesting here as the girls finish up here in the next week and a half, and then the boys finish up in the next 2 weeks, how that conference plays out.
My number 3 team continuing to crawl up the ladder, that is the Clear Fork Lady Colts. They went 4-1 since the last update. That one loss to Shelby at Shelby by 1 point, and you can't hurt them for the display they put on against Shelby. They also went off and knocked off Pleasant a second time by 4 points at Pleasant in a rescheduled game. So they're at 15-5. They're 4-1. They're the number 3 team in their district, and it seems like they're peaking at the right spot. And they'll have a chance maybe to move up a little bit more by my last update, because Pleasant, the number 2 team, they're going to be taking on Shelby at home here tomorrow. That's a big one. They're at 17-3 right now. 2 of those losses, like I said, to Clear Fork. The other one was to Minster at the Hoosier Court. So Pleasant, they're holding on to my number 2 spot, but a loss to Shelby and Clear Fork keeps winning. I think we'll have a flip-flop.
Yeah, could, but Clear Fork, they have River Valley, I think, tomorrow night at home, and then they end the season, I think, a week from Thursday. They go to West Holmes, and that's not going to be an easy contest, for the Colts there. But they're on the right track. They're a team, I think, that teams are probably looking at that they would prefer that they could stay away from in the tournament.
Yeah, and my number 1 squad, you don't even have to ask. It's the Loudonville Lady Redbirds, 17-1 overall. They're 2-0 since the last update, and those are 2 big wins. They won at Colonel Crawford in that scheduled game after both teams dropped a couple lesser squads. Big win for Loudonville there, and then they went to Port Clinton. They drove all the way up to the lake and got a big win over DC Lanier, who's one of the best scorers in the Sandusky Bay Conference in the history in girls basketball there. And all Corey Vermilia did was drop 40.
Well, and that's the thing with Loudonville. You got a player like Corey. She's probably going to be a candidate for, Miss Ohio Basketball Player
absolutely.
of the Year. And she does such a good job, not just of scoring, but she also gets other teammates involved. But as you can see in big games, she steps up when she has 40 against Port Clinton. That says a lot about them.
Yeah, and the Lady Birds, number 1 overall seed in their district. The 4 teams below them just avoided them like the plague, so they have a really good path to at least the district championship and maybe to Perry High School and the regional. So my top 5 one more time, Joe. Centerburg number 5, Cary number 4, Clear Fork number 3, Pleasant 2, Loudonville 1. What say you, sir?
I really don't disagree, because as we mentioned before, we had a couple other Northern 10 teams that were in that, and they've just kind of knocked each other around here the past 2 weeks.
Still a good conference. It's
Oh yes, but it's just Cary's in that league. Cary's kind of been the team that's taken over. Pleasant at number 2, they deserved all that, and as you said, they've got some good games coming up also. So as you get into the season here, a lot of times teams are fighting through injuries, illness, and just kind of being tired. So I don't really disagree with any of your rankings.
All right, over to the boys' side, where we had 4 Northern 10 teams in there. 2 of them no longer in my top 5. That was Cary, who went 1-2 since the last update, and Winford, who went 3-2 since the last update. And like I said, these teams are still fighting for a Northern 10 championship. It's just, each team beating each other up in the conference, and that's not how we roll in my Country Roads rankings. You're going to drop down a little bit, but you're still good teams. At number 5, Seneca East. They're still fighting for a conference title. They're a game back. They still have to host Colonel Crawford, which could determine if we have a 3-way split, a 2-way, whatever, all of that. But
they beat Crawford at Crawford.
They did. That was a good win.
In the first round.
Yeah, Luke Mason had a great game for them in that one. The lone loss, Upper Sandusky, but Upper, a really good team. They've been coming on as of late. Last night, they dropped only 4 points to the number 3 team in a Division II district, the Northwest District in Bellevue. Upper's a really good squad this year. That's their lone loss, so at 13-4, they only dropped to number 5. At number 4, welcome back to the top 5. I said they'd probably be back in. The Lucas Cubs. Lucas is at 13-3. They went 4-0 since the last update, and there are only 3 losses: Gallion, Crawford, and Crestview. 3 pretty good teams. Gallion, a Division II squad, and then Crawford and Crestview in D2 and D3 and 4.
And I think in that Gallion game, I think maybe the Tom's kid, maybe had gotten hurt in that game. And that's, if they lose him, that's a big difference. But,
Yeah.
But Lucas, for the past several years, and again this year, they're right in the hunt. They're going to win their league, and then they're going to be one of the top teams in their district. And it's a team that other teams want to avoid just because of how hard they play and how disciplined they play.
At number 3, I've heard you people out there, and well, it's the KMAC champs, the Northmor Golden Knights, 14-4. They're on a 7-game winning streak. They have a chance, to really solidify that number 1 seed here towards the end of the week. Only losses, Crawford by 7 in the game that they lost. Grant Bentley didn't have Jack Swenger in there. Pleasant by 30. Clear Fork by 25 when they didn't have their top 3 scorers. And then that Cardington game by 2. They revenged that game last Wednesday where they knocked off Cardington as well. So my Northmor Golden Knights, number 3 team overall now in the country.
Well, Jack Swenger coming back has been huge for them.
Yes.
And Bentley's been healthy. And then just the other night, Hunter Folk steps up and gets 28. They're the number 1 seed. Well, they're going to be the number 1 seed. And I would imagine teams in that Central District, the 2, 3, and 4 are probably going to try to avoid them as much as they can. So they wouldn't have to match up with them until maybe a district final.
And that helps out the Golden Knights in their path for their first ever district championship. At number 2, the Colonel Crawford Eagles. They went 3-1 since the last update. They're 14-4. That loss was to a Fredericktown squad that's sitting on the outside, right on the outside looking in. They knocked off Northmor tonight. If they would do that, that would maybe put them into the top 5, but we'll have to see. But Fredericktown's a good squad as well. But Crawford took care of business in the Northern 10 as well, so they still have a chance as well as getting that Northern 10 title.
I think they're 1 game up right now,
Yep.
and you had the big win against Cary at home. So, yeah, Coach Sheldon's got the Eagles rolling.
And like on the girls' side, everybody knows who my number 1 on the boys' side is. That is the undefeated Crestview Cougars. Coach Kurtz just got win number 400.
Yep.
Congratulations to Coach Kurtz and his squad, but this team still just rolling along. They have a chance to clinch the Firelands Conference with a couple games remaining here coming up. They got a big one at Norwalk St. Paul, but they really handled them the first time at home. So they look like they're going to be rolling to maybe a number 1 or a number 2 seed, but we're all, as media members, Coach, I know as a coach you're always looking 1 game at a time, but now as a media member you can look down the line at that possible matchup with Margaretta.
Yeah, I mean it'll be interesting to see how the draw goes on this Sunday with that. But you would probably foresee that those 2 teams would be in opposite brackets, and the hope would be that both of those would be able to get to that district final, because that looks like it would be potentially an outstanding matchup in the district final.
But still got to play some games, still got to play some tournament games before we get there. My top 5 once again: Seneca East at 5, Lucas at 4, Northmor at 3, Colonel Crawford at 2, Crestview at 1.
Yep, I don't disagree. I mean, you can't take Crestview out of that. They've run the table, continue to play well. I mean, I think the big thing for them is if you're a team like that, you want to make sure you stay healthy, stay away from injuries, sickness, those kind of things, because they've just been rolling. And I know, they had an outstanding season last year, record-breaking season. They're going to break some more records this year, but their goal is to get to that district championship and then win that district championship and get to a regional.
And we'll see. I have one more update coming up with the Country Roads rankings in a couple of weeks. We will see if Loudonville and if Crestview can lock up those championships for this season. But next week I'll be back with another edition of the Stat Leaders. But for now, Coach, appreciate it as always.
Good. Back here on the Joe Show, we're going to take a journey out to Caledonia, where one of the top scoring threats in the area calls home. The player is Carson Smith, and this senior playmaker has been filling it up for more than 22 points per game for River Valley this season. So I took a trip around the arena with a Viking sharpshooter to get a feel for his game, both on and off the court. Okay, we're here with Carson Smith of the River Valley Vikings for this edition of Around the Arena. So Carson, You guys are currently 11-3 overall, and you're 7-2 in the MOAC. You're into the second half of the season right now.
Yep.
So as you approach the second half, kind of what are you guys looking at as far as your goals for the second half of the year?
Our goals are mainly to win out, don't lose any more games, play hard, play as a team. So.
Okay. You know, every player that we talk to doing these, and I think every player that plays any sport in high school always has people that, a person or persons that maybe have influenced their career.
Yep.
Who would be that person or persons that maybe have influenced you in your career?
Well, my dad's always coached me over the years, so
Yep.
my dad really helped me out.
And you got a pretty nice court out there. I think I said I was out there
In the
once.
barn,
Once,
yep.
yep.
Had a lot of shots up in the barn. My
Yeah.
little brother, we've been always out there.
My last year coaching, you were a freshman.
Yep.
So you started 4 years here at River Valley. Kind of what's it meant to be part of this River Valley basketball program?
It's a big honor. Coach Brown's a good coach. I like playing for him, so the team's good. I mean, we're all playing as a team, so it's fun.
I think each year when a player finishes a season, they look to grow as a player. So if you were evaluating yourself from a year ago as a junior to where you're at as a senior, how would you say you've grown as a player?
Well, I've stepped up a little bit more, playing bigger as a player, like getting rebounds and stuff, because we lost probably the biggest rebound last year, Carson Myers. So
Yep.
me and Aiden Kenny had to step up, grab some rebounds, and just be an overall leader.
But you guys are hard to guard because you can spread people out.
Yep,
I mean, that's,
yep.
and you got 5 guys that can really score.
Mm-hmm.
What do you enjoy most about playing basketball?
I just like the game, playing with my teammates, playing with my brother.
I mean, that's kind of that's really
Yeah.
special. I mean, most
Yes, playing with my little brother.
most people don't get a chance to do that.
No.
That's something I think down
Yes.
the road you're really going to cherish.
Yes.
So if you're not playing basketball, what's your favorite thing to do?
I like hunting. I like to hunt. I like farming. I like doing outdoor stuff. So
It's interesting you say that because the Corey Vermilia that plays at Loudonville, that was one of her things.
Yeah.
She loved to hunt. I was like, that was,
Yep.
especially as a girl, was kind of shocking
yeah.
to me. Your favorite athlete?
Probably, I mean, I didn't grow up watching Michael Jordan, but like hearing about him, he's probably been like watching The Last Dance,
Yep.
watching
Yeah.
all that. So that's
Yeah, he would be guy
Yes.
that's pretty special. So if you have like a favorite food that maybe you pregame meal that you do?
I don't know about pregame, but my favorite meal would probably be chicken Alfredo. It's probably not very ideal to eat before a game. But
So you probably don't have that very often
Yeah, no.
before a game. You played for 4 years, you started for 4 years. Who's the toughest guy you had to go against?
there's been a couple of them. So TJ Pugh's been a big one. Alex Scotter, Jesse Burris.
Burris is at Delaware Hayes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he's a really good player.
There's been a couple of them over the years. So.
You guys play a really, really good schedule. We said you played for 4 years. What's your best memory of high school basketball so far?
So far, we're going to the districts, but losing wasn't very fun. But going to the districts.
You got that taste in your mouth that
Yeah.
you'd like to get back there. And one of the last things that we do is usually we interview players of the game. We give you a chance if you want to give a shout out to anybody. So is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Shout out to my teammates, mom and dad, all my family, coach.
All right, that's Carson Smith around the arena. Smith and the Vikings are now coming off back-to-back losses following a 9-game win streak, but they will be the favorite to win each of their last 4 regular season games. River Valley currently owns the number 2 seed in the Division II Central District with the tournament draws slated for Sunday. That's going to do it for tonight's episode. I certainly hope you enjoyed the new season up to this point. And since I only received 1 technical foul during the recording of the show, I get to return to the host chair again next week. Or maybe Jamma Montana can fill in for me. Have a super slamming week, everybody. I can win myself titles, cut down nets with my fans, draw up plays for hours other coaches don't understand.